Welcome to Wanna Be Clutter-Free, formerly Wanna Be Minimalist, the podcast for busy families who are tired of the chaos, fed up with being overwhelmed, and ready to enjoy life again. Each week, we talk about how to let go of the clutter so that you can focus on the things that actually matter. And it's not just physical clutter. We talk about the mental and emotional stuff too, because if it's holding you back, it's time to ditch it. I share what I've done in my own life to declutter, organize, and calm the chaos, but you won't just hear it from me. There are amazing guests too. It's practical, doable, and simple for those of us that want to be clutter-free. You're listening to the Wanna Be Minimalist Show with Deanna Yates, episode 109. On today's episode, I'm chatting with Dr. Michelle Deering, a licensed psychologist and mother-daughter relationship personal trainer. We're digging into the conversations we need to be having in order to empower our daughters. It is a great one, so don't miss it. Hey there, my Wanna Be Minimalist friend. Welcome back to the show. I cannot believe how quickly these summer weeks are passing. It's already the middle of July, which means we only have just over a month left until my daughter heads back to school. It is flying. I just can't believe it. But have I told you yet that I am excited you're here? Well, I am. And if this is your first time here, I hope you like what you hear and you come back for more. I have some really fun guest interviews lined up, so go ahead and subscribe to this show so that you get reminders of when they drop. You can do it right now from your phone on whatever service you use to listen to podcasts. And if you like this show, you can also take this opportunity to leave a rating and a review. Some of you have left some really nice reviews lately, and I just want to take a minute to read one from Cat Mama. And she says, I quote, "I listen to many different podcasts, and this is one of my favorites because it helped me in my life and home. The host is not preachy at all and sounds more like a supportive friend who just happens to have a lot of wisdom on the topic of decluttering. I can tell that she's been there and understands the struggles I have had with decluttering, but her suggestions have really helped to motivate and inspire me. I respect that she's a parent too, and I enjoy the episodes pertaining to parenting, decluttering, kid stuff, and involving our kids in household chores. I enjoy listening to this podcast with my headphones on while I take care of household chores and decluttering tasks. It passes the time and helps me take care of the tasks with ease." End quote. Well, Cat Mama, thank you for your kind words. I love knowing that this show is helpful and has inspired you into action. And now let's get back to today's guest episode. My friends, you are in for a treat today. This conversation was so much fun, and I hope you can hear the joy coming through your earbuds as you listen to us talk. So, do you ever come across people that you just instantly connect with? Well, it was like that for me and my guest, Dr. Michelle Deering. We just clicked and had so much fun chatting. I mean, I probably could have talked to her for ages. Maybe it's because I was super excited for this interview, and Dr. Deering does not disappoint. As a mom to a daughter, I have some serious fears about raising a well-adjusted, self-confident woman. There are so many pressures on girls and women, and I just want to make sure that I'm doing my best to build my daughter up, because there is enough out there that is going to try to pull her down. And so that is why I wanted to have Michelle on as a guest. Dr. Michelle Deering is a mother-daughter relationship personal trainer who believes that every mother and daughter should have a thriving, loving relationship. This refreshing approach has made her a sought-after speaker, online educator, and consultant. While Michelle is also a licensed psychologist in North Carolina and New Jersey and a nationally board-certified sports psychologist, she has served as a Fortune 500 corporate trainer, business school admissions officer, and a higher education professional. Nowadays, you'll find her speaking at conferences, training for her next Reebok Spartan sprint race, and practicing rudiments on her drum kit, all while coaching, serving clients, and recording her hit podcast, Mother-Daughter Connections. Well, it sounds like we're in good hands, folks. Give this episode a listen, and when you're done, head on over to wannabeclutterfree.com/109 to get the show notes for today's episode with links to Dr. Deering's website, her book, and a guide to lessen arguments with your daughter. That's right. She has a guide for that. Again, you can find it all at wannabeclutterfree.com/109. And now let's get to our conversation. Hello, Dr. Deering. Welcome to the Wanna Be Minimalist Show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Deanna. I'm totally stoked. I've been looking forward to this, on so many levels. So yes, I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, my pleasure. We were just chatting a little bit before I hit record, and I feel like Dr. Deering and I are long lost friends. I just feel like we've known each other forever. So I think you are in for a treat today, like I said. So we are going to be talking about empowering our daughters, which is I can't wait. I cannot wait to jump into it, but I don't want to jump the gun too early. I would love for you to tell myself and our listeners about yourself and what led you to this life where you want to inspire and ignite mother and daughter relationships through intentional mothering.
Well, I am a mother-daughter relationship personal trainer, where my whole focus is to actually educate, empower, and equip moms with tools and strategies. That's what I'm all about. It's like, how can we get in there and just give you exactly what you need for the situation that you're in so that you can have meaningful conversations with your daughters and connect better. And the way I got into that actually was I'm raised by a single mom who immigrated from Jamaica in the South Bronx. And, her whole bent was, okay, my daughters are going to be doing better than she was because she was a single mom. And we were, like, as I said, in the South Bronx. And so her whole thing was just nitpicking about everything, just making sure, anyone who's familiar with Jamaican households, we're all about P's and Q's, do everything proper, King's English, the whole bit. And so she's very critical. And the way I dealt with that was to excel and just throw myself into my academics and my athletics. I excelled at both of them, but we didn't really have a close relationship because she was always working and stressed out. And so fast forward, I get my doctorate, I get board certified as a sports psychologist. I'm in the midst of it, married, and then kids come in our twin daughters come in the midst of the whole thing. And my heart's intention was to have a better relationship with them than I had with my mom. And so for the early years, I was really intentional, right? And then, after licensure and getting postdoc and all that stuff, just got caught up in work and family and keeping everything going and kind of lost focus. And my wake-up call was when one of our daughters expressed to me as a middle schooler that she didn't want to live anymore. And I was like, whoa, wait a second. I need to kind of back up and slow my roll here. Because early on, we had really like this wonderful space where she would come in and talk to me and whatnot. And then all of a sudden that kind of stopped. And in the process of it took about 3 years to regain her trust, where I had to kind of look at myself and what I was doing and made the changes. And that whole thing led to me learning some principles that worked. Fast forward, I'll just stick a pin there. Fast forward, we have a great relationship now, had it through her high school years, into her now young adult years. But it was slow and it was painful and it was necessary. And when we moved from New Jersey, where we were from, to North Carolina, where we are now, I started encountering a lot of younger moms who had daughters and sons. And I started noticing how they were treating their daughters differently, being somewhat on the critical side, kind of undercutting with these offhanded comments, not, like for fun and jest, but they wouldn't see the impact that it was having on their daughters. And that pained me. And so I then said, okay, how can I help more moms? Which is why I wrote my book, What Mothers Never Tell Their Daughters, where I kind of walk folks through in a very conversational, hey, we're at Starbucks kind of chatting kind of way, through some things that have been helpful to moms since the book came out. And so that's what got me on this trajectory. And that's my passion, because our daughters are the future mothers, if they choose to be moms, raising the next generation of sons and daughters. And my whole thing is, how can I help that next generation? And it's one mom at a time. So that's what I'm all about.
So powerful. And oh my gosh, how gut-wrenching, but also how just wonderful that she came to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, oh my gosh, it just tore my heart out hearing that. Just I cannot imagine what that would have felt like, but just how wonderful that you guys have worked through it and that you have taken it into something so positive. And wow, just congratulations on that. And just thank you for the rest of us, because now we get to benefit from your strength and just all the stuff that you've done. It's just so amazing. So anyway, thank you very much for that. I find it interesting. I want to just 1 second for something you said
Sure.
stuck out at me.
Hmm.
It was how mothers, you noticed how mothers were treating their sons and their daughters. Did they treat them the same? Did they still have those like cutting remarks, like that little jesting with their sons, and their sons just take it differently? Or did you find that, I feel like we as women are so hard on ourselves
Hmm.
already, and I think that's a big part of it.
Yes.
Are we just projecting that now onto our daughters as well, or were they similar? Sorry, I might be jumping the gun on this. Were they similar in how they were treating them? Because I can see boys jest a lot more
Hmm.
with each other, and they seem to be okay with that, and it's harder for women. So
Right.
curious.
Yeah, no, actually the arc of the relationship between a mom and a daughter is different than that between a mom and a son. Just if you're looking at it from a psychological perspective and the
Mhm.
research that's out there, to hit on the point that you're asking me about, what I was noticing in the cul-de-sac was
Yeah.
a lot of times they would say these comments that would reference, say, the way in which their daughter was doing something, or sort of like, I call it these projective pronouncements about what kind of young lady she's going to be,
Mm.
and the way they were interacting with their sons is they were kind of just writing it off. Oh, he's just a boy, kind of thing.
Ah.
As and then what really caught my interest was how they would say in other arenas when their daughters were not around and we're just socializing, talk about their relationship with their moms. And I was sort of thinking, boy, they really don't see the connection here, do they? Okay, which is
Aha.
why, kind of just fueled my wanting to at least bring this to the surface in the, whether it's the speaking or in the stuff that I've written in my book.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Okay, so it
Yeah.
really is different. All right.
Yes.
So let's dive into it. Let's talk about daughter empowerment. This is one of the
Hmm.
things that you excel at. And so what are some ways then that we can create stronger connections with our daughters? Because I have a 9-year-old.
Hmm.
I'm terrified of the teenage years. She is an absolute delight. I love her. I feel like we
Hmm.
have a really good relationship and connection. I'm
Hmm.
a little nervous based on how you started today
Hmm.
with the relationship, with that. Like that
Hmm.
could happen, right? So, how do we increase her confidence and her courage? Because I do notice that in her. She's very critical of herself too. And so now I'm like,
Mm.
oh no, what have I done?
Hmm. Yeah, and I hear well, first off, just that I'm not one of these folks that believe that the teen years have to be this, torrential filled, tumult filled kind of time. I think that's one of the big lies that's out there, that we as women, for different reasons, kind of gravitate and have bought, because it undermines the power that we have.
Hmm.
Because if we're looking at something and already pronouncing it as a done deal that it's going to be this way, then you're automatically on the defensive. Your reptilian brain is just like kicked into gear, and it's sort of
Yeah.
like, okay, now everything I'm going to interpret a certain way. And my whole thing is, whoa, whoa, whoa. Anyone who hangs around me long enough knows that I'm all about us pausing
Hmm.
to consider our body of behavior in the moment. And so it's going to be really important for us as moms to recognize that empowerment, helping our daughters gain confidence. If you look at the word empower, is all about, you can either bestow it, it's something that's external that's bestowed on someone, or it's something that's internal that's taken. And so it's really about how we as moms can create an environment where we're doing four things. One, we're hearing our daughter. Okay. And I don't know, I'm not talking about listening. I'm talking about hearing with your heart
Hmm.
first. Okay. To hear her heart. Okay. It's that heart to heart connection. And the second thing that we need to make space for is actually cultivating her voice, which starts with pausing to consider her behavior, because our daughters speak to us not through our words first, especially if they're young, they're speaking through their behavior. So we need to
Mm-hmm.
pause to consider what's going on with her behavior. And then the third thing is really about creating an environment where we're establishing her boundaries by first having our own boundaries established. And I think that's where, and the work that I do with moms, whether it's through groups, courses, or consulting, that's where I help moms kind of just help them make that shift to realize, okay, there are boundaries here that are not in place that need to be in place, both internally, physically, and verbally. And then the fourth thing is, once those boundaries are established, respecting your daughter's no. You'd be surprised, just little things like that we do unintentionally. Again, I'm not about blame or pointing fingers. I'm all about folks gaining an understanding about what's going on. So when we respect her no, things like, oh, Auntie Sue has come over and give Auntie Sue a hug. Well, if your daughter's not feeling it there to give her a hug, why are you going to go force her? That in essence sets up a pattern for her to know that her no is not respected, or that her physical boundaries are not respected, which then can feed into things later on. So it's those four things, hearing her heart, cultivating her voice by pausing to consider what her behavior is, what's going on there, establishing boundaries by first you having boundaries, and then respecting her no.
Oh, so good. That respecting her no. Absolutely. Right. Because you can't undermine their decisions. I talk about that a lot with like decluttering too. If they're ready to get rid of something and you're not ready to get rid of it, well, then you take it. You make it your thing, not their thing, because you can't make them or have them second guess themselves, because that does set that doubt. And then they maybe I'm not right, or maybe I shouldn't trust what I was feeling, or that kind of stuff. So that one really resonates with me too. So really good. Really 4 really good things. Yeah. Interesting. I can't wait to, hang out with my daughter this afternoon and start like, okay, let's get into it. How was your day, honey? And then be really quiet, because I'm not good at that part. That's what I have to work on, is the shutting my own mouth and listening.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got to start with number 1.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah,
number one.
Okay.
Yes. I'm right there with you. I'm totally right there with you, because it's taken me a while to exercise that muscle of just shutting my mouth after I've opened it.
And I just bite my own lips here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So when we talk about cultivating the voice that your daughter needs to succeed, what does that mean? So do you mean voice like spoken voice? Because this is something I struggle with my daughter. She doesn't seem to want to verbally express herself. So I don't know that it necessarily is that, but I'm just curious, how do we help cultivate that voice, and what does that mean?
I'm Margaret.
And I'm Amy.
And together we host the podcast, What Fresh Hell? Laughing in the Face of Motherhood.
Margaret, I would say you're sort of a where are my keys kind of mom.
Correct. Sometimes a where are my kids kind of mom. Well, you're, Amy, more of a we were supposed to leave 35 seconds ago, mom.
I mean, touche. In each episode of What Fresh Hell, we come at a topic from our usually completely opposite perspectives. I bring the research.
And I bring kind of the gimlet eye. Like, is that research really going to work, people?
And almost 10 million downloads later, we're still laughing.
We also talk to experts in the parenting field, plus parents with stories we can all learn from.
We make each other laugh, we challenge each other's assumptions, and we have what we think is the best parenting community on the internet.
Check out What Fresh Hell, Laughing in the Face of Motherhood, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Okay, so cultivating a voice is all about creating a space, and the reason why I have the word cultivating on my brain is because we have twin daughters, and one of them is really into gardening, and 2 years ago she planted some morning glories for me in a pot, and I was sort of like, okay, I have a green thumb, but I don't know how I do it, and so this year there was nothing coming up in the pot, so I got some seeds and I just plopped them what I thought would be in a nice order. But what happened was, as they came up, they started choking each other. I didn't know, but when I showed her a picture, she said, "Mom, the seeds are planted too close together. So the roots are just crowding out and taking nutrients away from the other ones. So you got to cut some of them out." Maybe we'll get back to that in a little bit.
Okay.
But in terms of cultivating that space, it's really about I say that because when you think about creating cultivating her voice, it's not about just scattering a bunch of seeds and telling her, oh, you're great at this, or you go girl, or you're so good at, it's not about that. It's about noticing her, acknowledging her verbally,
Okay.
and then encouraging her to take ownership of whatever her actions are. And then lastly, trusting her. And if I can just spend a little bit of time on each of those,
please.
the noticing is really about, and in this fast-paced life that we live as moms, and we know it, we're just jetting from one thing to the next. But it's, when was the last time, like I asked in my Facebook group, I was like, when was the last time you actually looked at your daughter square in the eyes? You know, or taking that moment to turn your full body in her direction when she enters a room. Those are the ways in which we can notice her. And then the acknowledging her, it's the verbal acknowledgement of her presence, you know, simple as not, hey, but hi there, or I'm really glad to see you, you know, just things like that. And then, and this is where it plays so much into her getting a sense of empowerment and confidence, is when we encourage her to own her take responsibility of her actions. And not, we're having a conversation about ways to discipline and things of that nature. That's another conversation, but finding ways to have her take ownership. So if you've asked her to do something and she hasn't done it, then you as a mom, having taken stock of what your overall goal is, how are you now going to hold her responsible for either the action or inaction? Because I believe that plays into her being able to be present in herself with confidence when she knows, okay, the buck stops with me. Okay. And then trusting her. And this is where we moms can sometimes kind of, I call it miss it, where we're like, yes, I trust my daughter. Yes, she'll do it. Oh, let me just pick up right behind her. Then where's the opportunity for her to take ownership? So that's how we kind of create that space intentionally and see it sort of like, this is my pot that I'm planting seed in very intentionally, not too close together, making sure that I have, you know, enough space around whatever, and I'm giving her the room to do that. And developmentally, that's different for someone who's, you know, before she's, you know, in kindergarten. It's different for someone who's a tween. It's different for a teenager. It looks different for someone who's a young adult. So, but that's kind of the general gist of how you do that. Yeah.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you. And yes, it's right. It wasn't the verbal voice. I mean, it is that as well, but it is just kind of her being. So
yes.
Awesome. Okay.
Yes.
Very cool. On board. And it very helpful. I'll sit here and listen to you all day.
We're chatting.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
I could talk about this all day. So, because, you know, this is like really
love it. And I think it's so important for us moms because no one tells you this stuff, right? I mean, you come home from the hospital with a baby and it's like, good luck. Just your instincts will kick in. You'll know what to do. And it's like, no, if I didn't grow up in a house that taught me how to do this, I don't know how to do it. And I think, you know, I don't know, you have other people that say like, well, we're all screwed up from our childhood. So great. You know, lovely. How do we stand a chance? So this is how we stand a chance. So
right. And, you know, can I just interject there for a moment? Because that pains me on a certain level, because I believe that we as moms are like, our role as a mom is like the awesomest, if that's a word, leadership position that we can have. And that great leaders, they know what they're good at. They also know what they're not good at, and they know where to get the help for the things that they want to shore up. Not that those things that we're not good at are deficiencies. They are things that we need to pause to consider the body of behavior that has brought that about. And when we do that, then we can make informed decisions. And yeah, so I'm all about moms knowing, and
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the movie Evan Almighty, but there's this one scene where he goes, "I've got the power." Boom.
Yeah.
So I just, I'm sort of like, moms, you have power. Don't.
Yeah.
It saddens me when we abdicate it to these prevailing, I call them just prevailing lies that are out there about we as
Yeah.
women and our capability.
I love it. You're right. You're right. And I was going to go in there and say, like, I don't feel like my parents screwed up my childhood. So mom, dad, if you're listening to this isn't me projecting
She's
that
lovely. She's lovely.
No, that's not it. But
Right.
you know, there are people out there that say these,
Mhm.
and maybe we should call it a big lie. You know, we're
Yeah.
all screwed up from our childhoods. And I think, like I said at the beginning, we're doing the best we can with the
Right.
knowledge we have at the time.
Right.
And right now, if you need to hear it, there is no shame in asking for help. There is no shame in researching and learning. We have so much at our fingertips these days
Mhm.
that it's all here for us. And so I think that we as moms should band together, and we
Yes.
are all awesome. And
Yeah.
you know, we really do have a very important role in the world and in the life. And being able to raise a human being is the greatest joy of my life. I mean,
Mhm.
it is gut-wrenching and exhilarating and, you know, joyful and painful and all the emotions in the spectrum. And it just, I feel like it has made me a much better human being in seeing, you know, what she is capable of. And then it just
Yes.
makes me realize, like, oh, I'm capable of a lot more too. And so I think it's more about empowering not only our daughters, but ourselves. So,
Yes.
okay.
High five through the screen. High five through the screen.
All right.
I
So
hear you.
how are some ways we can know that it's quote unquote working? Like, what should we look for to see that our daughter is being empowered and that she's feeling good?
I guess to go back to, her having power and you cultivating that space, the way in which you can tell that she's doing well is if she can express her feelings, and, if not in the moment, shortly thereafter. Because at least what I found, especially when I was working at a Big Ten college counseling center, a lot of college students came in, they just didn't know how to deal with things that they felt, let alone name their feelings. And so that's the first thing. Is she able to express her feelings? The second thing is, and this is in particularly important when you have like a tween or before they enter their tween years, is, does she know what she's good at? Okay. Has she embraced what her abilities are? And then the last thing, and I've kind of alluded to this earlier, just her having the capacity and comfort level with saying no,
Okay.
regardless of whether or not someone's going to respect it, but that she in herself knows that it needs to be respected and can carry herself that way. Yeah, those are the three things to kind of look
Awesome.
for. Is she able to do that?
And so then on the flip side, I wanted to start with a positive. So when we're looking at the other side of that, what are things we need to look for in order to shore her up?
Yeah, I call it again, and I've alluded to this. There's a language that she speaks, her voice, through her body, through her physical body, through her behavior. And when I say through her beliefs, I'm talking about what she's saying about herself, other people, life situations. So let me just go to the body part. If you notice that she is slumped over, or kind of just walking really slowly, or if she's normally an active child and is doing that, or if she is normally a child who kind of is reticent, keeps to herself and whatnot, more on the melancholy side, and all of a sudden is just acting different than what she's accustomed to, that's something to attend to. In terms of her behavior, what is she doing? What is she into? And again, this is not to pinpoint anything in particular, but sure. If one day she's, ride a bicycle on the sidewalk, and the next thing you know, she's, hey, I'm gonna do some X game-ish kind of stuff and start living on the edge, then you want to kind of attend to, okay, just inquire. So what is it about that that's all of a sudden interested you? And just engage her in a conversation about it.
Okay.
And then in terms of her beliefs, and as you said, alluded to earlier, your daughter is like, you know, thinking or being very critical of herself and stuff
Mhm.
like that, if I heard you correctly.
Yeah, I
You
have
know,
an
the words
example
that,
of that.
yes, please.
So she was in tennis lessons,
Mhm.
and first time taking tennis lessons, I didn't think we had put any pressure on her to be good at tennis. I thought we were just like, okay, like we're going to try this. We're going to try this out. We're going to see if you like it. One of your classmates is doing it. You guys get along. So why don't we, it seems like something fun to do. And we watched her one time in class because the way the courts were set up, like we couldn't actually see her,
Okay.
but we kind of snuck around to the back. And so we're
Mhm.
like now hanging out in the trees because her grandmother was in town. And so we're like, well, I mean, we're going to let's at least attempt to watch some of it.
Right.
And she was sitting there and she would be like, in a joking manner, be like, I'm terrible at this. And I'm just sitting there going, I don't want you to talk to yourself like that. Like, I understand being like, I'm learning this. Like, oh, I'm not good at this yet. Right. Like words like that to me seem okay. But what should I do when she's doing something like that, where she's just like, I'm terrible. Ha 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 ha. I mean, she didn't seem like down about like, oh gosh, I'm so bad at this. Like I'm just never going to do it. But that's a hard one for me. What do I do with that?
First off, I'm kind of curious as to, whose idea was it for the tennis thing?
So we asked her if she wanted to do, there was one of her friends was doing a soccer camp and one friend was doing a tennis camp or lessons.
Right.
And so I said, well, like, do you want to try either of these? Like, which would you want to do? And she picked tennis.
Okay. So she picked tennis.
So she picked it.
Okay. So, and is this the only environment in which you've actually heard her use words like that?
So distinctly, yes. I mean, she gets down on herself for sure at the house. Like if she's doing something and she just can't do it, she almost like gives up. Like she doesn't want to keep doing it. But where she's just like happy-go-lucky, like I'm just terrible, ha ha ha, like kind of in that way. So I mean, this is kind of the first like real self-deprecation I've seen around peers like this.
Yeah, and because I don't know the whole background
sure, of course.
And stuff, because there's so many questions I have
Yep.
with regards to that. Okay, so she tends to be down. That's something that's normal, like something that you've seen. So that is something that would be explored. But in general, usually around the pre-tween years is when I actually did a blog on this and a podcast
we'll link to
episode,
it.
but
I'll find it.
where this whole thing about comparison kicks
yeah.
in, where they're starting, and it starts a little bit earlier now because of social media, where that comparison thing comes in. And so what I would recommend as her mom would be just to, at another point in time, just like you're all going to ice cream or something, just doing something very blasé. It's just like, hey, how do you feel about the tennis thing? Open-ended. You shut your mouth and listen and hear what she has to say. And if she's like, oh, it's okay. Oh, well, I noticed that you seemed hard on yourself and whatnot. And then just kind of follow the conversation that way. It's again, not to jump on her and say, why are you doing that? It's more trying to get into her world, creating a safe space for her to inform you about what's going on inside of her.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me know how it goes.
All right, I will.
Please
I will. Yeah, I'll find out. Thank you. And the thing is, she didn't seem like to totally hate tennis, because then as we're talking about summer camps and trying to figure out what to do and what camps to do, I had suggested, like, would you want to do a tennis camp? She's like, well, that'd be fine. Like she didn't seem like really against it. So I'm just really confused. So we'll have the conversation. We'll go out and, over dessert or something. Just be like, oh, okay. I'm going to practice it, by the way. I'm going to practice it before. So all of you listening to this that think I'm just going to like roll it off and be like pro at it, I am going to go practice in the mirror, asking a question and shutting my mouth because I am not good at that. Okay.
That's great.
Do it. Okay.
That's good.
So awesome. I think it's fantastic. So what about, are there ways that you, like, one topic I get a lot, people ask me all the time, like, I'm super into decluttering, my kid's not into decluttering, or into decluttering. I think I said that wrong. Or like, right. I'm into tennis, my kid's not into tennis. It could be anything, right? Mm-hmm. What do you, I mean, I get that our kids are not put on this earth to be mini us, right? Mm-hmm. They're not meant to be into the same things we are. But what if you are passionate about something and your child just doesn't seem to be? What are there ways we can kind of bridge those gaps? Like, what do? Do you just kind of say like, okay, well, they're just never going to do it, or what?
Well, are you speaking specifically to decluttering?
Let's talk about decluttering.
Okay, because
let's talk about decluttering.
Yes, let's talk about that. And again, I might sound like a broken record, but it's really about you as a mom pausing to consider not just your body of behavior, but what is it about your daughter doing that with you? What's that all about? And you may or may not like the answer.
Life.
And so, that's kind of the way I would answer that question, because as you're right, they're not meant to be mini yous, though there are many moms who would think that is the case. And it's not to say anything about that, but that comes from somewhere. And unless we kind of get a hold of what that is, then you're going to unintentionally be doing things that might not help the ultimate goal or desire that you have. One of the funny things in our house is, I'm a board certified sports psychologist. I was an athlete myself, and my husband, he was on his way to the Olympics when, he got injured. So, we're all like sports, right?
Wow. So
now we have our daughters, and so in our house we're like, okay, well, 2 requirements to be in the Deering household. You're here, but we love you. You got to play an instrument of some sort, and you have to do a team sport, because the research shows for young ladies, team sports or any kind of athletic endeavor helps them in terms of a whole bunch of things. I won't get into that right now. But here I am, and I'm sort of like, having been a softball player, really good. And I said to one of our daughters, hey, you want to go throw a softball? She's like, sure, mommy. We go out, we throw the softball back and forth for about 10 minutes. And then she's like, are we done? and I was like, sure. In that moment, I had to pause to consider, what was it that I was hoping to have happen? And come to terms with the fact and be honest with myself. And as I'm going to share with you, is I really just wanted one of our daughters to play softball because I really enjoyed the sport, and I wanted to be able to go out there and cheer. And if you weren't going to do softball, at least basketball, so that you could play for Pat Summitt when she was alive, and and I could go to Tennessee and it was all my thing.
Yeah.
But I was able to pause and just let her find her thing. And her thing ended up being music. And, she's in marching band. And for all you marching band moms out there, your son or daughter is out there working up a sweat. And that's a sport. That is my contention, to be out there on the field doing that and playing an instrument. And then my other daughter is a dancer and choreographer. And so they found their thing. And I'm a sobbing mom. When I see them in their element, I just cry for joy, because they found their thing. So yeah.
Totally. Yep. And I do think there is a little bit of a moment that maybe we can take for ourselves and grieve a little bit and be okay with that and understand that that's part of the process. And you're not, well, at least you tell me if I'm wrong on this, because I'm not the doctor. So you tell me if I'm okay on this, of just being like, it's okay that that dream had to die. And just to have that moment, like you did, of just saying like, okay, this is what I really wanted to happen. and it's not going to happen. And I can be sad about it for a hot minute, but then move past it and just say like, okay. And I think if we can think about it in those terms, like you just told us, I think that will make it a little bit easier to let go of some of those things and to listen more about what really makes them tick. And
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. And not to cut you off, but there's and quite frankly, if you can allow yourself to go through that grieving process, I guarantee you on the other side of it, you're going to have this larger world to connect with your daughter in that will bring you more joy if you just hang in there with the process.
I love that part. Okay. So there it is. There's the light at the other side of that tunnel, you
Yes.
guys. It is okay to let it go. It is better to let it go. And the life on the other side is much brighter and exciting.
Yes.
Well, Dr. Deering, I mean, this has been wonderful. Like I said, I could talk all day, but I know your time is precious. And so where can people find you? You have a book out. Let's talk about that. Where can they find you and just connect?
Yeah, well, folks can find me on my podcast, Mother-Daughter Connections. It's on all platforms. And they can also find me as part of my email community. I have a PDF. If you download it, you'll become part of my email community. It's actually a quick guide, and moms have found this really helpful, a quick guide for less arguments, because in that guide, I cover principles, 3 of them, that if you cover those, believe me, your encounters with your daughter will be less volatile if you do them. And so that's, you can find that at bit.ly, bit.ly/less arguments.
Okay, great.
And then my book, What Mothers Never Tell Their Daughters, you can find it's audiobook. If you're the one who likes the pages and likes to feel them, it's in all of those formats, as well as ebooks and things of that nature. So, and I actually do the voice, the stuff. So
you actually read it. Fantastic.
Yes.
Well, you have a lovely voice, so it will be a lovely listen. So I will make sure that we link to all of those in the show notes so that everyone can grab them in case they are listening while they're out and about and don't have time to write that down. So just make sure you check out those show notes, guys. They will be there. Okay. And then I love to end every interview with 3 rapid fire questions. So the first one is, what does minimalism mean to you?
When I hear that word, I think about knowing what your enough is and having the courage to live fully with it and in it. That's what I think of.
So good. Knowing what your enough is. That's a good one. I like it. Number 2, what is one of your favorite pieces of advice that you didn't get a chance to share today?
I didn't get it. I was trying to, if you forget anything today, if you can just remember, it's more like not a tip, but an encouragement. Your daughter you were meant to be your daughter's mom. And the times in which you feel like you've fallen short or made a mistake, because we all do. The only thing we as moms do perfectly is we love our daughters imperfectly. But even in those imperfections, those are actual opportunities for you to make a new kind of connection with your daughter. So if you forget anything that we've talked about today and just can remember that your daughter is meant to have you as her mom.
I love it. You brought tears to my eyes. So good. So good. And promise I'm happy. What is making you happy right now or in this season of your life?
As we were saying off air, I am celebrating my 30th anniversary with my BFF hubby. And so we'll be renewing our vows in a little bit. And that's the first thing I'm really happy about. And the second thing is, our daughters are going into their senior year of college, and just seeing how they've just taken the reins of their life to then go out on their own, and the things that they've worked for and, been, I just call it crushing it. It makes me really tickled for them. Beautiful. I'm so happy for them. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, congratulations on 30 years
Thank you.
and so lucky that you get to be with your best friend. That's wonderful. I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah, I call my husband my best friend too. And it's a
Oh.
great feeling. So
Yes.
I hope that
yes.
everyone can be so lucky. So
Thank you.
awesome. Well, Dr. Deering, thank you so much for today. This was amazing and really helpful and inspiring. And again, everyone, please make sure you check out her stuff because she is wonderful. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Was I right? Could you feel the joy? I know I got a little emotional there at the end, but I promise it was from a place of joy. I hope you enjoyed today's guest interview and found some helpful advice from Dr. Deering. I know I sure did. If you're up for it, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Come on over to the Wannabe Minimalist Family Group on Facebook and share any takeaways you had from this episode. Sharing what you've learned will help cement the idea in your mind, and it might just be the thing that someone else needs to hear today. So let's build each other up and encourage each other on our journeys by sharing what we've learned. A special thank you to Dr. Deering for joining us on the show today and for sharing some great advice. Remember, she has a free quick guide to help you lessen arguments with your daughter that you can access in the show notes. Head on over to wannabeclutterfree.com/109. Again, that's wannabeclutterfree.com/109 to get the quick guide and find out more about Dr. Michelle Deering. And as always, thank you for joining me. If you made it this far, I would be thrilled if you left me a review on Apple Podcast. Your reviews make my day, and it helps me be able to book more guests on the show for you to discover and learn from. With that, I hope you have an absolutely fabulous day, and I will see you back here next week for another guest when I will be speaking to Jen Trepic about the topic of willpower. Oh my gosh, you guys, like I said, I'm so excited for these guest interviews coming up this summer. They are amazing. And next one, it doesn't disappoint either. So make sure you come back here next week and check it out. All right, that's it for today. I am Deanna Yates, and you've been listening to the Wannabe Minimalist Show. Cheers.